Alright guys, welcome back to another Fortnite video, and in today's video, we have so much to talk about in regards to the cube, the island moving, what it is going to be doing, because as you guys know, it has been moving around pretty fast, and it is super close to actually completing its cycle, and stuff is going to be happening like this week, and nobody's really been talking about it, so we're going to be going over all of the clues of what has been changing with the island itself, what it means, and even some theories that could be very likely for stuff like having to do with Dusty Divot, maybe even a new material, which we will talk about, and like different clues towards that. Honestly, it actually seems pretty likely, and just a bunch of fun all around, going through clues and theories to try and figure out what exactly is happening with this island. So yeah guys, if you enjoyed today's video or are just hyped to see what exactly is going on with the island, be sure to hit that like button down below. On top of that, I have a question for you that's a little bit random, but I'm just curious to see. I've been wondering this. If you had the option to pick up a golden scar in the game or a golden burst rifle, which one would you go with? I think I know what I would personally pick, but I'm curious to see what you guys would pick as well. So leave that down below in the comments. But without further ado here, let's jump on into it with the first thing I want to talk about. And this is going to be like a mix of clues and theories, putting them together. And this first one is just a clue in general and talking about when exactly the cube is going to be finished moving around the map and do whatever it is going to do. So as of me recording this video, this is where the cube is on the map. I'm expecting it to sort of reach the next rune around the time I post this. Usually it reaches the next rune at around like 4 p.m. Eastern time, and as you can see, it is very close as I'm recording this video. Now that itself is very important since it is going to be reaching this rune right here, which is the 6th rune that it has, you know, went to and like lit up and stuff like that. So that means we can pretty accurately predict when it's going to get to the final rune and when that stuff is going to go down. So yeah, if you didn't remember, season 6 started on September 27th, I believe, or at least around there, but I'm pretty sure it was the 27th since that was a Thursday. But if you count the days between then and today's date, Monday, October 15th, that is about 19 days. But I think the cube started moving around, you know, Friday. So let's round up to 18 days just to make it a little bit easier to do the math there. But with that, if you divide 18 days by 6 runes, you get about 3 days time for the cube to move between each rune. So with that being said, we can add that to today's date and predict that the cube will reach the final rune most likely on Thursday, October 18th, which seems pretty likely because that is 3 weeks exactly from the start of season 6. Now there is the possibility that it reaches that rune and maybe it needs to, you know, do some other things and it takes a day or two. So I'm expecting the 18th, but maybe it could be like the 19th or 20th. We'll have to wait and see. But there's more than likely going to be something going on there with a special cube island event, or, you know, along those lines. So I cannot wait to see what is going on there. But what exactly is going to be happening? Let's get into clues about that here, because there is so much to go about. And the first of which is that these, you know, rocks are growing on the island itself, and they're continuing to grow quite a bit. And I think I might possibly know why this is. So you may have seen one of my previous videos. We talked about a bunch of changes in the 6.02 update. I posted that a few days ago, and as you can see, this is where the rocks were then. But if we go onto the island right now, you can tell that this stuff, these weird cube formations, are growing even more. Like you can't even reach the top anymore from jumping onto it. So these are continuing to grow, and that definitely seems pretty important. Now this will lead into a point later on that's super important, so keep that in the back of your head and we'll wrap back around to that. But the other thing that I think is super important is that the runes themselves are glowing. Now I know that doesn't seem like too crazy, and you know, it's pretty obvious to see that, but generally when you see something glowing, and you know, like the craters, they glow and they send out a ton of energy and stuff like that. They shoot you across the map, you know. There's also these giant beams of light that come up from the center of the rune. The runes themselves have this glowing stuff with them. There's also the fact that the island like picks up the runes itself and like seems to charge them up like that, and then when it drops it into the ground, maybe that's how it, you know, keeps its charge. I believe that is super important because it is charging up. I think once it gets to the final rune and all of these are charged up, that is when we're going to see some crazy stuff go down in game. And this is the preliminary part that the cube is setting up to get everything ready to do some crazy thing to the island itself. And if it's charging these up, it's got to be massive. There's a lot of power going into those runes. If they can shoot you across at a pretty fast pace, maybe this is how the cube is planning to corrupt the rest of the map, stuff like that. We'll circle back to that stuff and talk about theories coming up soon. And you know what? Let's get into one of the big theories I want to talk about, and that is Dusty Divot. How does Dusty Divot tie into this cube moving around the map and, you know, all of that? So yeah, this just makes sense to me, honestly, because, you know, know that the cube has been moving around the map in like a circular formation around the ones on the outside, but the 7th rune that it needs to charge is the one in the center of the map. So that mainly makes sense for 2 reasons. The first of which is that finishing at the center of the map, if it was going to do something to the map itself, ending in the center would be the most logical way of doing it. So that is definitely a possibility, but there's also the fact that this final rune is near Dusty Divot. And one of the theories that has been going around is that the island is going to fill in Dusty Divot somehow. Again, that is just a theory, but it would make sense just judging by how close the island will end up to Dusty Divot. And it's not like the island is going to stay in the air for the rest of the season. It's honestly got to come down at some time. And where is all of that stuff going to go? I mean, it is a pretty massive island, so it would make sense to me that the cube would be done moving around the map, charging up its runes, and it would simply move over a little bit and fill in Dusty Divot, which I would maybe be a little bit sad about. I honestly do like Dusty Divot. It's a unique area. You always have to go down into it. It's got a ton of trees. It's sort of like a jungle. I do like that aspect of it, but if they don't decide to fill it in now, where this is like the most logical way of doing it, I don't think they would have another opportunity in a very long time. So it's kind of like a now or never situation with this, but I do think that itself is pretty likely. Now, real quick before we get into another very fun theory, there's a little bit of something that I want to show you guys, and maybe you can come up with ideas for it, because personally I wasn't able to find anything, and it could just be a bug, I don't know. But either way, let me know what you think about this. So yeah, when you go onto the island, there's this area that goes under the main house. You know, it's sort of like a mining area. It's a cave basically. But when you go into there now, obviously you've got a ton of the rocks around the, you know, cube rocks, whatever they're called. But you also hear this sound in there, and the sound is sort of hard to explain, but it's like this low, continuous, intimidating sound. Now, as far as I know, this only shows up in this cave. It might show up sort of above in the house itself, but this is the main place that I noticed it. I also went under. I thought maybe it could be like the sound of the wind just sort of glitching out, and it 100% still could be, but I don't know. I'd like to think that this sound means something. I even put the sound into a spectrogram like we've seen in the past. I'm surprised they haven't used that for clues in quite a while, and nothing came up that I can see, so maybe it's just referencing how menacing the cube is going to be and that it's again evil. But moving on to the next thing I want to talk about, this is another theory because it has to do with all of those volcano theories that we had, which still could maybe happen. I don't know. I still think it's weird that they threw us off with Dark Bomber and the volcano that they put on her artwork, but either way, you may have seen this, but if you flip the island upside down, you can't deny that it kind of looks like a volcano. I mean, even the glowing on the side sort of looks like lava, and it's of course got that classic volcano shape, that sort of mountain shape with the opening on the top. So it is entirely possible that maybe it does turn into a volcano still, and all of that stuff with Dark Bomber and the volcano on her shirt, and also she's carrying a cube even on her back bling. I still think Epic Games is hinting at something with that. Come on, Epic Games. We're gonna have to wait and see. But with that, it's possible that maybe that's what fills in Dusty Divot. It flips over, makes a volcano in the middle of Dusty Divot, and that sort of keeps the lava contained, so it's still in a singular area. That's entirely possible, so maybe those two theories mesh together, and that's how we finally get all of the volcano stuff happening. But yeah, guys, it is time to move on to my personal favorite clue and theory of this video, and that is what has to do with possibly a brand new material coming into the game. Again, this is just a theory, but it's one that could be very, very likely. So this is the part where I wanted to wrap back around to those rocks and stuff that are growing on the top of the island, in the house, in the cave, all of that. I wanted to circle around to it because these rocks actually look very, very similar to a certain type of rock mineral. I'm not exactly sure like the technical term of it, but it looks very similar to bismuth. As you can see, here are some pictures of bismuth, and not exactly the color, but the general shape of these looks so similar to these rocks that have shown up on top of the island. And also, I do want to give credit to the first CCPM on Reddit for making this connection originally, but it does just seem too perfect. I mean, you look at these pictures and they even look like the runes sometimes, like the little protrusions have those 90-degree angles. And you also just can't deny that the weird like cube type look to them looks super similar to the ones on top of the island. So with that being said, it could definitely be bismuth, but maybe it's like a charged up version of it. And with that being said, could this eventually be a new material that we get in the game? I don't know, guys, but that would be awesome. And listen to this idea. And this is actually credit to Nick30. I saw a tweet of his and I couldn't help but think that it just makes sense and this could maybe happen. But he had the idea that what if when the cube is done moving around the map, the rocks on top of the island, maybe the island explodes and they get scattered around the map. This would make for a new material on top of of wood, on top of brick, and on top of metal. And that itself would be massive. Like, that is one thing that has never changed in the game. Out of all of the new weapons we've had, all of the new items, even a giant floating cube island around the map, the building materials themselves have been one thing that has never been added to. And maybe that's a good thing. Honestly, I like the way the materials work at the moment, but I can't help but be a little bit curious and think, what if we got a fourth material? So if it has to do with bismuth, I'm not exactly an expert on bismuth, but it's sort of a metal, so maybe this could be like a super strong metal. Again, it would be super rare to find on the map, so you wouldn't be able to get very much of it, but that would allow you to use it in special situations. Like if somebody's shooting at you while you're turtling, instead of just spamming walls until they stop, you could put up this material, and it's a lot stronger and it blocks them off for a lot longer. But you may only have like 3 walls, so you have to be very careful of where you place them. I don't know, guys. It's a lot of fun to think about, and it just seems like something that Epic Games would do. So again, it is just a theory at the moment, but hopefully we get to see some of that soon. But then for the last thing I want to talk about and put it as a conclusion to all of this, there is still the bunker and the people that are investigating the rifts inside of the bunker. So if you saw my last theory video, we talked about this a lot more, but it's definitely interesting that whoever made this bunker happens to be investigating a rift inside of the bunker. With that being said, the cube came to the map within a rift. So these people could be investigating that and maybe creating another rift to send the cube back to wherever it came from and maybe save us from this corruption that is spreading around the entire map itself. I still think something with that is going to tie in, so we'll have to get a few more clues before we decide exactly what is happening there. But yeah, guys, that is going to be it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, be sure to hit that subscribe button down below. On top of that, you can check out some of my previous videos. Got some awesome ones, such as talking about 9 update info things on the left for the next update coming out, and then another fun video on the right. But other than that, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next one.